not expecting magic things here. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bollocksing It Right Up. One man's journey to enlightenment through the making of errors constantly. Now, last episode we started, I started, you lot just watched. I started the refurbishment or reclamation or repair, whatever you want to call it, of this old Kurt Vise, which was in bad shape. And I went about it using method B of my project management techniques. Method A involves a lot of careful planning and research and investigation and thinking through different scenarios and what might go wrong and working out the best approach and so on and so forth. And when I use method A, projects are usually quite smooth and very successful. Method B involves just jumping in and making a start and seeing where you end up. This is, generally speaking, a less successful method. I get there in the end, but it involves a lot of rework typically. So be it. Anyway, jumped in, started cutting the top rails, didn't know how that was going to go, had a bit of an adventure with it, but ultimately, did all right. Now, there were a lot of good comments and advice and opinions on the last video, all good. It wasn't a single stupid comment at all. Lot of interesting comments. So thought I'd run through those a little bit. I've made some notes. So a couple of people said this should have started with the base, i.e. the underside of the vise. Absolutely yes, that is totally what I should have done. I didn't, because I kind of just wanted to see how working on the top rails would go, and because I didn't think about it properly. But yes, absolutely should have done that. A couple of people mentioned that the correct way to recover a vise is to surface grind it. That is also 100% correct. However, the point of what I'm doing is just to try and see where I can get using what I've got on hand. And I don't have a surface grinder. I keep looking for one. I keep an eye out for one at the auctions. They come up frequently, but they tend to go for silly money. It does look like the price of used equipment at auction is starting to come down. So there might be a possibility that I end up with one, but I don't have one now, and I just wanted to see how good I could make this with what I had on hand, and also practice some scraping techniques, which is something I've started to learn recently from a retired machine rebuilder who has kindly given me some advice and tuition in that regard. Somebody said, what you should do, because you've got a second one that needs repair, is you should now just make the two exactly the same height, which would be a useful, pair of vices to have. That's also absolutely true. I think that's a great idea. I'm not going to, and the reason is I've decided on a plan for this vise, which I will let you all in on in due course. But I'm going to finish the repair first. Otherwise, though, that's a fantastic idea. There was some discussion about hardening. Now, when I started machining this, I didn't know what material, what kind of cast iron it was, what cast iron alloy, or whether it was just case hardened or what. Now, I've actually cut close to 40 thou off the top of these rails, and it's still incredibly hard. That's a very thick hardened layer. Now, a couple of people said it's probably flame hardened. So I looked into that. I'm not super familiar with flame hardening, so I looked that up. Turns out that is a technique that allows you to get really quite thick layers of hardened iron, even on grey cast iron. So yeah, I'd say there's a strong chance that that's the process that Kurt used. I did actually write to Kurt Vise Kurt Workholding, and ask them if they would tell me. I didn't really think they would, and indeed they didn't. But I thought, it being an old Vise, maybe if they've changed their approach, then maybe they would tell me what iron it was and what process they used, but they declined. They did, however, point me to the very excellent scratch and dent section of their website, where you can get really top quality Vises brand new for significantly lower than normal price. So worth taking a look if you're after a new one. I actually bought one some months ago. I already knew about it, but the scratch and dent site, and I bought a brand new Vise, and it's a thing of beauty. I can't find anything wrong with it. So as you can see, I've got a brand new Kurt Vise here. It's only been used twice since I bought it, so the recovery or otherwise of this one is somewhat unimportant. It's really, that's a practice tool. And then I also have this one, which needs some attention. This was bolted to the Cincinnati mill when I got it. One gentleman who wrote a very long reply with some excellent information on it said that, really there are multiple reference surfaces and they all need to be precision ground in to be square and parallel and everything else, which is also 100% correct. But again, for this particular thing, I'm just going to try and make the best of the situation. Now, unlike the more modern Vises, these older ones don't have reference surfaces along the side of the bedways, but of course the moving jaw and the fixed jaw were ground to be square and parallel and everything else. But I'm probably going to machine the top of the fixed and moving jaws, but I'm probably not going to touch the sides. My hope is that the front faces are square. I will be checking that. If they're not square, then I'll do something about it. But we'll come to that. So right now, I'm going to crack on. So I'm going to show scraping the rails first, because that's what I did. I did some scraping of these before I did anything else. Then I chose to finally address the underside, and I'll show some scraping of that I was doing. What happened was I got pretty fed up with that. I was scraping on it for hours and it was simply too far out of flat. So what I then did was put it up on the mill and machined it so it was more or less flat all over, and then came back, gave it a light scraping just to clean off any high spots, and then did a parallelism check. So I've kind of done all of that, and now I'm doing the introduction now that I know what the hell is going to happen. So as usual, could have saved a lot of time if I'd thought this through a bit better and got the sequence right. But even though I got the sequence wrong, went off track a little bit, I think I'm going to be able to recover this and make it a usable Vise. But let's take a look at all of that and see where we end up. So yeah, definitely some high points, and I think I might practice my newly acquired scraping skills, such as they are, and have at a couple of these spots and just see if I can improve it just a little bit more. That'll give it a nice scraped finish anyway, well, hopefully.
The scraping that you see going on here actually took place before the first video was released, and after mulling it over I decided to just show you everything in the order that I did it. So as was said before, should have taken care of the underside first, but whatever. This is how I did it, rightly or wrongly, and that's what I have to live with. So the scraping that you saw on the top rails was done before the release of the first video, and after reading comments there I switched over to working on the base, and what you see here is just stoning off the surface after initial period of scraping.
Yeah, so I actually did a more appropriate scraping there. Prior to this, I'd been just scraping the entire surface, I mean every little bit. And you're not really, when you're doing ways, you don't do it that way. You kind of break it up and you go 45 degrees and then 45 degrees. And I've started to get a little more of that pattern just because I'd gone back and reviewed my notes and realized that I wasn't using a good technique. Now to horrify some of you, it was pointed out to me that I was using far too much blue. This is absolutely definitely the case. And that's too much there. See, it gets everywhere. It just gets everywhere. Okay. I've got to a point where I've got quite large areas of blue, and this is certainly not the surface finish that you shoot for when you're doing a machine table, you know, or ways. It doesn't have the flaked point appearance, basically because I scraped it wrong. But I also don't particularly care about that because this is a vise surface. This just has to be flat, very uniformly flat. It's not supposed to be sliding around a lot. It's bolted down and fixed. So the most important aspect is that it's flat. And if I can achieve that, I'll be happy. So what I'm going to do is just scrape all the blue regions and try and get as much area blue as possible. And that I'm actually slowly but surely achieving that. Do not regard this as an attempt at a scraping tutorial. It is not a tutorial. I'm just showing what I'm doing, which frequently I do things wrong. Just ask my wife. Nevertheless, I do get results. This one is this is a brand new Sandvik scraper, completely blue now. You do have to be careful with that ice spot blue. It gets everywhere, and if you're not careful, you end up looking like well. So anyway, so that's a lovely tool. I did also recently acquire some older tools. This one's an Anderson Brothers. Is that what it is? Anderson Brothers? A little narrower one, which I think may be more appropriate here. Yeah. All right, I'm going to keep going with this and bring you back later. I've been scraping away on this thing for hours, and it turns out the underside is a lot less flat than I'd thought. Go figure. And I'm getting fed up with it, although, as to be said, my scraping technique is improving a little bit as I practice, so that's all good. However, I kind of want to be done with this. It's not that important of a project, but having got this far, I do want to finish it. So I've decided what I'm going to do is skim the base. I've got it turned upside down, as you can see. So the base will now be trued up a bit relative to the rails. And I'll give it a skim and check it for flatness. I may then scrape the underside a bit just to kind of clean it up, make sure it's got all the high spots off. Then we'll check parallelism again and see where we are, and make a decision about whether we continue or not. I feel like I'm going to get it there. I've seen people put vices into service that are more than 2 thou out of parallelism, and I think I can get this one better than that. So, quick look at the clamping setup. I've got a bolt and a T-nut on the table, and that goes up through a steel bar with a nut on the inside of the vise holding that end down, because there's only this circular hole to grip on otherwise, which is no good. And up the other end, similar thing, got a bar across the ways and a clamp. Well, there it is. That all went very well, and it's very smooth. I don't think this underside is as hard as the top side. It cut very easily, and it scrapes very easily. Anyway, I'm going to run round it with the chamfering tool, deburr the outside edges, and then we'll get it back on the surface plate and see where it's at. I'll probably just give it a very light scrape on the underside, take any high spots off. I doubt if I'm going to do much more than that. Right, so this is a parallelism check after doing the machining of the underside. So let's see what we've got. Bring the gauge down. I'm going to use the fine adjust on the height gauge. I'm out on 0. We're running under 5/10 on that rail. Now I'll bring it over to the other rail gently, because when you come off of a surface like that, that can throw the indicator off. It looks like we're a little bit high right here. But I guess I don't really care, because that's where the fixed jaw goes. And out, once you get out onto the rail, we're basically 1/2 thou. So I'm pretty bloody pleased with that, honestly. So what I'll now do is I'll clean the underside of it and re-blue it. I'm just giving the underside a light scraping just to improve the overall surface, which I'm going to do off camera because it just takes so much time filming every little thing. Right, one of the things we're concerned about is movement of the vise when it's clamped down. So I've got it over on the mill table now that I feel it's flat enough. And what I'm going to do is put a test indicator on this rail first and then on this one, and tighten the nuts down and just see if it moves at all. I need to adjust the camera position for this. Right. Nuts are loose. So now I'll lower the test indicator down. Okay. And now carefully tighten easy. Okay. So that's FT, F in tight. And now the other one. Unfortunately, with the camera angle, I can't show you me tightening this nut. I'm not seeing any movement. So that's each nut tightened individually. Now if I tighten this one up, and usually I wouldn't just tighten them right up. You'd go a little bit at a time on each one. So this is a harsh test, and there's no movement there that I saw. So that's great. Let's do the same on the other rail. And that's what you want. You want a stable vise that doesn't move around when you clamp things. Now this one's not perfect, I admit, but it's going to be plenty usable. Okay, I'm going to change camera position. Bring this off. There we are. Okay, same thing again. Nuts are loose. Lower the test indicator. Very sensitive. All right. So this side first. Okay, there is some movement there, a couple of tenths. Yep. Now this side. Doesn't seem to be any there. Now with that tight, tighten this one up. No movement. So yeah, not perfect, but I'm going to call that okay. There's a limit to how much time I'm going to put into this. And I think this is becoming a very usable vise. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Unfortunately, I'm completely out of time. I had hoped to get this to a point where I had the base fully scraped and flat. Didn't quite manage to get it there. So, but I think I've managed to demonstrate that even when you're kind of fumbling around and totally new to these sort of things, that you can get where you need to be. I feel very confident that this is now recovered. So a couple more things to do. I have to check squareness of the moving and fixed jaw to these ways, and I'll show that in the next video. And then I've got to finish degreasing and give it a coat of paint. Just, it's got that much effort into it, might as well get a coat of paint. And then I'll reassemble it using one of the Kurt rebuild kits. There's not a lot to that, but that will just help make it good. And then that will be that. And then in the next episode, I will reveal what I'm going to do with this vise. I will not be keeping it. That's all I'll say about that right now. So yeah, my scraping techniques aren't perfect, and my bluing techniques aren't perfect, but as I've attempted to use them, and I've gone back and revisited the notes I've taken and looked at people who actually know what they're doing, I've started to build that in, and my skills in that area are improving a bit. So I didn't show scraping under normal speed because I just kind of wanted to show you an overview that I was scraping stuff. You know, I certainly don't feel like I'm in a position to tell anybody how to properly scrape and how to properly blue surfaces, but I'm getting through it. As you saw in the last part, I've managed to get it to a point where it slightly distorts when bolted down, but not very much. When I first started on this, it was all over the place. And I've got the flatness down now to somewhere around 5/10, you know, parallelism, I should say, of these rails and coplanarity to each other. So overall, I'm actually pretty satisfied with it. So if anything, I hope this video demonstrates that even if you've never done these kind of things before, you can achieve good results. That's really all there is to it. This is very much a learning exercise for me. I've got a lot out of it, and even though I'm not planning to keep the vise, I'm okay with that. So going to be a few weeks before part 3 comes out, because I've got a bunch of commitments over the next couple of weeks. So, but that will then wrap this series up. So hope that you come back and take a look at that. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Stay safe and well. Hope that you've enjoyed these in some form. And for anyone who's stuck around this long, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone that's subscribed. And just for the hell of it, I'm going to post a couple of still pictures of some of the wildlife in this area. So if you like that kind of thing, enjoy.